Hey everyone, so today we're talking about a massive shift, something happening right under our feet. You see, the very foundation of our global system, it's starting to crack. The whole era of optimistic cooperation seems to be fading away, and what's replacing it? Well, it looks a lot more competitive, and maybe a lot more dangerous.
That's the big question, isn't it? And it hits everything, from the phone in your hand to the price of gas. For decades, it really felt like the world was moving in one clear direction. More connection, more trade, more shared rules. But that whole trend has kind of hit a wall. It might even be going in reverse. So what on earth comes next?
To really get a handle on this, we're going to zoom in on one organization, APEC. That's the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum. It's really the perfect case study. Why? Because it was born in this super optimistic time, but now it finds itself right in the middle of this intense rivalry between the United States and China. What's happening to APEC is like a mirror for what's happening to the entire world. Okay, so to really understand what's going on with APEC, first we have to pull back the camera and look at the turbulent world it's trying to operate in right now. The basic rules of the game are being challenged, and honestly, no one knows how it's all going to shake out. And that right there is a pretty stark warning from Dr. John Mearsheimer, who's a huge voice in political realism. It's a sobering thought, and it really sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. He's not just saying we're in a bit of a rough patch, he's arguing we're entering a fundamentally new and much more dangerous period in history. All right, so let's dig into this realist argument. To really get what's happening, we need to be clear on a couple of key terms. Now, I know it sounds a little academic, but stick with me, because it all clicks into place once you get the difference between an institution and an order. First up, an institution. Think of it like a single building block. It's basically a rule book. So you've got organizations like APEC or NATO or the World Trade Organization. They all create rules that tell member countries what they should and shouldn't do to help everyone get along. An order, on the other hand, is the whole structure you build with those blocks. It's the entire system of institutions all working together. And here is the absolutely crucial point. These orders aren't created by everybody. They are built and run by the world's great powers to serve their own interests. Now, Mearsheimer makes this really critical distinction. On one hand, you have an international order. That's one that includes all the great powers, something like the United Nations. But then you have a bounded order, which is exclusive. It's built by one great power and its allies specifically to compete against another one. And you can see this play out perfectly in recent history, right? During the Cold War, we had two of these competing bounded orders, the US-led West versus the Soviet bloc. Then the Soviet Union collapses, and for a short time, we're in this unipolar moment. The US-led order basically goes global. It becomes the international order. But now, with China's rise, we've snapped right back to a world of competing bounded orders, and that changes absolutely everything. So what does this new reality actually look like on the ground? Well, this isn't just some abstract theory. It is creating deep, practical divisions inside organizations that used to be all about cooperation, organizations just like APEC. So Robin Niblett, the former head of Chatham House, has this fantastic way of describing APEC. He calls it a hangover from a past era. It was designed for a globalized, win-win kind of world. But today, it's an organization that literally contains the fault lines of this new Cold War between the US and China, simply because both of them are members. And these fault lines are tearing APEC apart in three key areas. First, you've got the tech contest. The US is restricting chip technology to China and forcing allies like South Korea and Japan to get on board. Second, the security front lines are heating up over Taiwan and in the South China Sea. And third, there's the trade contest, with all these tariffs and protectionism making a big comeback. So facing all this tension, what did businesses do? Well, they got clever. They came up with this workaround called the China Plus One strategy. The idea was pretty simple. Keep your factories in China to sell to the huge Chinese market, but build new factories in places like Vietnam or Malaysia to export to the US and dodge the tariffs. But here's where geopolitics is hitting back, and hitting back hard. Donald Trump's reaction to this was blunt. He doesn't see a smart business strategy. He sees cheating. And this just goes to show how much political competition is now completely overriding purely economic thinking. Okay, so if the old way of doing things is broken, and even the clever business workarounds are getting attacked, what can smaller and middle-powered countries actually do? How do you survive when you're caught between these two giants? Well, Sir Robin Niblett lays out a few possible paths. The first is to just try and keep these old institutions like APEC on life support, basically just buying time and hoping for a better future. A second option is to go sub-regional, double down on ties with your immediate neighbors. A third is to bet on loopholes, try to play both sides and hope the big threats are mostly bluster. And a fourth, use APEC as a kind of soft bridge, a place for dialogue between the US and China. And if you want to see the power of that sub-regional strategy, look no further than RCEP. That's the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. It's a huge China-led trade deal that includes most APEC members, but not the US, and it represents a mind-boggling 30% of the world's GDP. It's a quiet but massive move to build economic ties outside of the direct US-China fight. And all of this brings us right to the heart of the matter, the incredibly tough spot that countries on the front lines find themselves in. For them, this isn't some academic debate. It is a daily reality filled with impossible choices. Just take a look at the bind a country like South Korea is in. On one side, its entire security is guaranteed by its alliance with the United States. But on the other side, its economic prosperity is deeply tied to China, its biggest trading partner. So every major decision they make, especially on tech, forces them to choose between their security blanket and their economic engine. It's an impossible position. But let's end with this weird, kind of paradoxical bit of hope from Dr. Mearsheimer. He basically argues that because the United States is so bogged down with crises in Ukraine and the Middle East, the absolute last thing it wants is another crisis in Asia. So, ironically, all this instability around the world might actually be keeping things stable in the Pacific. The key words there, of course, are for now. And that leaves us with the ultimate question for the future of our global order. As the world splits into these competing camps, is there still any room for countries to carve out their own independent paths? Or is choosing a side, in the end, simply inevitable?